Hello friends, CD Mangaka back to do a hopefully short YouTube video talking about what the Dragon Ball FighterZ competitive meta looks like after the 1.32 patch that Bandai Namco dropped before EVO this year. And I mainly want to talk about this video because I want to pose a very simple question to address an elephant in a room, and that is, did the patch actually do anything? Because this was our grand finals at EVO this year, Hikari and Yasha duking it out with the Blue Fusions and Android 17. What the hell? I thought that we nerfed these characters and we weren't going to be seeing them dominate the meta like they were. Were the nerfs not enough? They were. The players are just that cracked and good, and there's a couple other factors that go into it as, again, it's an open bracket of sorts. To more further explore this question, I want to sort of demonstrate that the patch did do a thing that it should have done, and that was improve diversity for the top-level metagame of Dragon Ball FighterZ. If we look back at the World Tour character usage, for this year back in March, so about 5 months ago from this video recording. This is what the top 20, the group stage of the Dragon Ball FighterZ World Tour Finals look like. And as you can see, Labcode 21 is a dominant character, 15 players out of 20 who got to that part of the World Tour Finals used the character on their team. Vegeta was at a comfortable second place with 9 picks, Gogeta Blue at third with 7 picks, and then you had pretty small character usage and diversity with some character specialists showing up. This ultimately culminated in about 20 unique characters being picked out of the roster of 44, if I have my number correct. Once we got out of the group stage and into the top 8, Labcode and Vegito and Gogeta's maintained their relative popularity, with Labcode being represented by 6 out of 8 teams, Vegito being on half of the teams, and then you had, people picking between the Gogeta fusions, a couple character specialists down here, and of course the diversity pool shrunk overall. This is what the meta was like before patch 1.32, and then 1.32 comes out. It did a bunch of crazy buffs to a lot of characters, some weird, some very effective, and you also had nerfs to the top tiers where Labcode, Vegito, and Gogeta Blue all lost 50% of their meter. They build half of the bar that they used to. And I think that scared a lot of people off from playing those characters and playing those characters together, because the one thing about the previous patch was that a lot of those top tier picks, they were played together a lot of the time. The top 2 teams in the game were Gogeta 4 and then Vegito and Labcode, and then you had Gogeta Blue and Vegito and Labcode. You could have some debate as to which one was the number 1 team, which one was the number 2 team, right? Depending on which Gogeta you favored more. But when the patch came through and slapped a bunch of meter nerfs across a lot of the top placing characters, as well as a nerf to Gogeta Blue, where his 2H now has landing recovery, and Labcode 21 spins are now reflectable, including on her A assist, which I think was one of the more important nerfs of the patch, because she had a great scramble assist that could convert into an easy pickup or into a great lockdown assist, and now it's not that lockdown assist, it's a bit of an RPS situation where are they reflecting it? It feels like a lot of players haven't quite taught themselves to reflect those spins, but we'll see how people continue to prepare for this character as sort of the metagame continues to evolve with the next round of competition, the next World Tour, and of course the new patch that is dropping by the end of August. Now, if we take a look at the EVO top 24 pick rates here, courtesy of Poppy Jan on Twitter, thank you very much, we can see that Labcode and Vegito still hanging out at the top of the leaderboard here. They're still the 2 most picked characters. Has the meta really changed? Well, yes, because you have to keep in mind, right, that instead of Labcode being on more than half of the teams, she is on a third of the teams in this top 24. In fact, it's only a fourth of the teams in this top 24. And I can tell you for a fact that Vegito and Labcode probably weren't being picked together as much as they were at this level of competition. I ran into a player who was still playing the Gogeta Blue, Vegito, and Labcode team at EVO, actually, but I don't think they made it out of pools. So I'll let that speak for itself. In the meanwhile, though, we can see that there is a lot more character usage happening here. In fact, from this top 24 character usage chart, there is a total of 29 out of 44 characters picked at this stage of the bracket. So diversity overall has increased. We can see that Jiren, he's on the map all of a sudden with the buffs that he got. A lot of people are really valuing this character highly. You had Vegeta Blue as well. coming out of the woodwork, right? Fenrich switched back to this character. A couple more cells. Gogeta Blue has suffered the biggest fall from grace, where he lost his third place spot at this event. Although, funnily enough, he'd get his revenge by taking first and second at this tournament in the hands of Hikari and Yasha. Gotenks is back on the map now that the bug is fixed for him, and he's gotten a slew of buffs. Plenty of base Vegeta representation, but we got Cooler showing up, Kefla, character specialists, KJ Pixel and Gropus have represented Frieza and Baby for very deep bracket runs at times. You also had Garlic Bread. I think actually KJ Pixel didn't play Baby this tournament. He played Jiren, Frieza, and Janemba. And so this would have been Gropus and Garlic Bread. You had Captain Ginyu showing up in the hands of Garlic Bread, right? Like really a character specialist style of player. And Garlic Bread wasn't allowed to compete at the World Tour, so we do have to keep that in mind. He initially qualified for that spot, but because of his age, he wasn't allowed to compete. Shoutouts to Vegas laws, I suppose. And that's a lot of our character representation. Then if we jump over, excuse me, I went away because I was trying to go on a manhunt earlier. But if we look at the top 8 character usage, right? So EVO was reduced down to top 6 being streamed. Top 8 games were sort of cut off from it just for saving time for more ads, I suppose. We saw that Nitro got into top 6 with Gotenks, Android 18, and Adult Gohan, 3 unique characters. Garlic Bread got into top 6 with Super Baby, Captain Ginyu, and Krillin, 3 unique characters. Hikari had Vegeta, Gogeta, and Android 17, as did Yasha on the losers side. That is one thing I do have to shout out, is that Yasha got sent to losers by Adrian Riven, and he still managed an eclectic run that got him second place. That's pretty godlike, especially for a team that is strictly worse than it was in the previous patch. Or then the previous patch, excuse me. Kite showed up. Kite, you might remember, they were a Gogeta 4 lab coat Vegito player, but now they dropped pretty much that entire team. They still kept the lab coat, but they played Majin 21 and base Vegeta, and they got a respectable 5th place finish. Well done, Kite. Again, 2 unique characters so far. Actually, no, that's like our first lab coat in this one. So again, 3 unique characters on this team. A lot of this top 6 has unique character picks. Then you had Gropus playing Super Baby 2, Frieza, and Beerus. Another character repeat, but very unique team composition. And I've already mentioned Yasha, who had a mirror match with Hikari in the grand finals. And then if we include the 7th place finishers, Inzem and KJ Pixel, just for a 1-to-1 comparison for the top 8. Inzem played 2 teams, actually. His main team was Base Vegeta, Gotenks, and Android 18. So that's kind of repeating a few characters that Nitro played, but instead of the Gohan, Base Vegeta was his pick. And then KJ Pixel, who I mentioned before, was running Frieza, Jiren, and Janemba. So a couple character repeats overall across this list, but certainly a lot of just unique standalone teams. Everybody kind of played their own team. Really, the only overlap was between, I think, Gropus. No, even Gropus was sort of unique, right? Because he and KG Pixel played Frieza, but they had different shells surrounding them. You had Inzem and Nitro sharing a shell with Gotenks and Android 18, but then a different third pick in there. And then everyone pretty much just ran unique characters and teams from that one. So that's the case. Why did Hikari and Yasha become the 2 finalists? Well, that's just how an open bracket plays out sometimes. I know that Hikari tried other teams, wasn't happy with any of them, and he went back to his old team because the team still does damage. It still has gross 50-50 mix-ups, amazing pressure, and some of the most powerful assists in the game. You don't need meter to 2-touch with those teams. The meter nerfs basically meant that you have to play a certain way with those teams where you can't really use your meter defensively, I think, anymore and keep ahead. And I also think that they changed the way that they use Spark. Instead of sparking earlier to keep the whole team together at times, it might have been saved a little bit later. At least that's what some of my memory is telling me, right? Like trying to save it up for Vegito to build a lot of meter to then do his level 4 knockdown mix-up play. I will actually be reviewing the top 6 of EVO here in just a moment. I'll be going live on Twitch for that, my friends. So if you catch us on YouTube, check out the link in the description. We can look through the EVO top 6 all the way together. I'll be watching with a few of my Colorado friends. And I also want to say that a lot of people experimented with new teams, and they were only a few months old, whereas Yasha and Hikari, they've been playing their teams for years at this point now, and there's just certainly a level of comfort, familiarity, as well as tech that you just can't match in a few months of preparation on a new patch, where other players have just to make a few adjustments to how they're spending their bar. I do want to congratulate Hikari on his victory here. He won Bum's Birthday Bash and EVO, repeating Wawa's feat from the previous year, as well as Yasha for an incredible tournament tournament run. He could have gone down earlier at any point. We could have not had a mirror match EVO Grand Finals, but that seemed to be the theme for this year because, as I told you before, yes, Dragon Ball FighterZ was a mirror match in Grand Finals, but so was Marvel. So was Melty Blood. And so was Tekken 7. In fact, all the other games, I believe, had mirror matches. King of Fighters had mirror matches, except for one character difference in the team, but they had the same shell going on around them. And then I'm trying to remember what the other one of the games that had a mirror match was. The only two games at EVO that did not have grand finals as a mirror match was Strive and Street Fighter 6. So kind of just a weird year for EVO. Ultimately, Bandai Namco's efforts have kind of separated the carried players by the fusions from the godlike fusion players, where if you're Yasha and Hikari, you can get away with playing with half the bar that you had before because you're nasty like that, and that team is still really good. Whereas I think people who had to use meter a little more inefficiently, they kind of got siphoned out of the competitive pool, as it were, or at least players chose to move on because they wanted to play with more meter. It'll be interesting to see what the end of the month patch does for Dragon Ball FighterZ, because Bandai Namco did announce before EVO that they will be doing their follow-up patch to 1.32 at the end of August. You gotta wonder if they're going to maybe roll back some of those meter nerfs and slap on some damage or button nerfs to Gogeta Blue and to Vegito, because, I mean, hey, top 2, despite being nerfed, that's an impressive showing. But I have to give all my respect to the players who made that possible in the first place. Dragon Ball FighterZ is more diverse, and I'm very much excited to see what happens as top-level players grind the game more, discover more things in the next patch, and perhaps get a little more motivated whenever the hell rollback comes out. Because I think that Yasha and Hikari are grinding the hardest in a game that is suffering from a lot of burnout from waiting for news and updates on a very important update to the netcode for this fan-loved title. Either way, my friends, thanks for watching the video. See you in Mangaka. Catch y'all on Twitch.